everybody, and welcome to Women of Dance. I'm your host, Sharonne Vinokurov, and I am so excited for today's episode. My guest today is a beautiful talent, a beautiful soul. Not only is she a legend, as many would say, although she doesn't like to be called that because she's so modest and wonderful, but she's an advocate for so many. She uses her power to help others and uplift others. And I really hope her story today will uplift so many of you. So, without further ado, we please welcome my fabulous guest today, the lovely Ana Masacote. Hello.
Hola.
Hola. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying this really weirdly warm weather in December. Unfortunately, you have to take silver linings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to thank you for giving us your time today. I know your schedule is super busy. So I really appreciate it that you are doing this and willing to share your story with us today.
Well, thank you for having me here. So, just on that note, I know that you're just as busy. We're all crazy busy. And thank you for sharing this platform with our community. For everybody tuning in, hola, thank you, welcome. Thanks for making time for us today. Join in on the chat. Love to hear from you.
Yes, yes. For those of you that are tuning in for the first time, we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. So feel free to send in your comments, your questions. I will pull them up as they come over. We'll try to get to all of them, whether there's something you want to ask Anna that I'm not, or you just want to send her your love. Feel free to do so. And again, this video will also be up after the show is done. So if you couldn't make it on the live, you can definitely watch it afterwards. Oh, Anna, you already got someone sending you some love. Madalena,
You made it.
she's sending you kisses. All right. So, Anna, let's take it to the beginning, right? I'm going to ask you the same question I asked everybody else. How did your dance life begin?
Oh my goodness. I think that when you ask that question, it's a very like convoluted question. You're always asking, where do you begin?
As
Uh,
far back as you want to go. We're here for it. It's all good.
I've been dancing all my life. I am a Chicana raised in Texas. I grew up on Selena, my cumbia days.
Hey.
I grew up dancing banda in the posadas in Mexico. Dance has been a part of my life always, and ultimately, I can't really say that I started at a particular time as much as it's just something that's always felt ancestral and a part of me from day one. I got more serious in terms of building more of a profession out of dance when I was in college out in Boston. But I'd say the first foray into salsa when I was 15.
Okay.
Visited the club on a borrowed ID.
Nice.
After years of visiting quinceañeras on borrowed invitations, I was like a quinceañera crasher. I literally knew the person at the club. Oh my God, I knew the person at the door, and they would let us in. They're like, you just don't even need the invitation. Just go in. Just go in. I feel like
That's amazing. I love
so
that.
it's always been there. It's always been there, and more professionally in when I was in college.
Let's talk about your college experience a little bit because you are a smart cookie. You are. Can you talk to us a little bit about Anna, the educated, if you will?
Well, I came to Boston to study electrical engineering and computer science at MIT. Um,
Yeah.
I think that the learned studies or universities are just one form of learning and studying, and so I know many people follow different pathways. For
Mhm.
me, it's what I thought was necessary. My sophomore year, I had a change of heart and realized that I could be good at engineering, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And what I really loved was dance. And I decided to start up an entertainment company, switched into business, gave my family a heart attack, probably more than once.
Oh, I'm sure more than once.
Yes. And then met Joel Masacote around that time, and we decided to start up Masacote, and here we are today. Many years later, Masacote having thrived, but
Well, you brought them up, so I'm gonna go right to the
yeah,
videos already.
that was our piece, Mambo Gallego. That is actually funny enough, our very, very first duet piece that we did that became our company piece. Years later, we became much more known for Take Five, which was a salsa dance on 5/4
Oh, I
timing.
have that. It's coming up. I
Yeah,
think it's actually the next video.
okay. Yo,
So slow it down a little bit. Slow down that journey,
you
girl.
have that. Well,
I'm already there.
people really thought that Take Five was our first, but Mambo Gallego was actually our first, and that was I think it still holds some, like, a lot of dearness to my heart for that reason. And so and that was sort of what we got out with at the company first.
I love it. And this was back in 2006. I went on a deep dive on YouTube to find this one.
That was at the cruise, the All Star Salsa cruise. Shout out to Gogo Earl if he's on.
Oh, Earl, we love you.
And Kevin, Kevin, they just like really did an amazing job with this cruise, and that's when we were doing Mambo Gallego on the cruise.
Destiny Garcia is saying that you're amazing, and I couldn't agree with her anymore. Destiny's also amazing. She was on the show last season. Love her to pieces.
I'm only as amazing as community. I feel like we're all a byproduct of our communities, and much of what was built was all because of the community and the amazing people involved. Here, you'll actually see Samantha, who was one of our very, very first principal dancers. And there's Joey, who danced with us with a short time, but I believe currently still lives in Springfield. So, I mean, amazing folks, and they were what were able to help us get to the point where we are today, where Masacote is today. That's really branched off. I mean, and it's really it really took off over time.
When can you talk to us a little bit about the formation of Masakote Entertainment and like what was the canon for it? What was the goal, the initial goal when you started it?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. That the idea for Masacote started in 2003, and it was basically started in this concept of wanting to bridge a gap between music and dance. Unfortunately, something that still happens now, but many of the dancers didn't want to dance to live music. They felt it was too long. There was a lack of respect for the roots of the music and how that correlated with the dance. Meanwhile, musicians in many cases didn't even like playing for dancers because they felt that dancers sometimes like showboating and didn't connect with the music. And so that became a really, really big, important topic for us that we wanted to really address. So Masacote specifically started to bridge the disconnect between music and dance. And Joel is a musician and a dancer, and I came from the dance side. And we wanted to really merge both of those worlds and create more productions. So through our years, we launched 3 music CDs. We launched a band, and we traveled with the dance company. And our main goal was always really that. It was always really taking it back to the roots, and our teaching focused on the music, the history of the music, the basically the main inception point that made dance possible.
And I will say, as somebody who's taken your workshops before at congresses, I think some of my favorite ones were the ones where you really like there wasn't even dancing. It was sitting down and understanding music and rhythms and all of that. Like I
Yeah.
remember sitting in a circle at Jalissa's event, Latin Vintage or Puerto Vintage, and like talking about instruments. I was like, this is so eye opening. I love this.
My goodness. And this piece is called Take Five. It was written on 5/4. The music is 5/4 timing, which means that in order to choreograph to it, we had to create a way to dance to salsa in 5/4 timing. So mainly putting your regular salsa basic into a count of 10. And so to this day, we can social dance to this song as partnering, but that's what we had to do in order to create that. And so Take Five was a really, really big achievement. This show is actually from the 2004 LA Congress. And I remember at that event, one of the musicians coming to us at the very end of the show, and telling us that for once he really felt like he was seen as a musical artist, and and it was a very emotional moment for him. And I think that
Mhm.
was the first time that I really understood the responsibility that we as dancers have to really bring the music out to the world, and how much we can do if we collaborate with musicians in the process.
Oh, I love that. There's so much truth to that, and I hope that a lot of choreographers and directors take note of what you said there, because 'cause they're the ones that are
Mhm.
creating the works, you know?
Hmm.
Uh, Talk to me about your partnership here and the creative process with the 2 of you.
Yeah, well, this was my very first dance partner, Joel Massica. We don't dance together anymore. He's moved now, and he's not in the US anymore.
What?
Yes, yes, but that's another story. So
That's another story,
shout out
sorry.
to Joel. And so Joel and I started dancing back in 2003 into 2004, which was when we launched the company.
Mhm.
And we always really focused on the art, and that was the main thing. Hey, oh my goodness, yes, it was the Salsa Addictive Festival. Sorry, I'm looking at your notes.
It's okay.
But
I've
yeah,
said I would bring them up as they come in, so there you go.
the um the partnership always really centered the artistry of it, and for us
Mhm.
that was really important. And I came from a dance world. I remember the first time that I asked Joel to clean one of my routines. He asked me what the count was, and I just kind of went could did it did it did it did it. And he's like, yeah, great, but what's the count? And I was like, did it did it did it.
Yep.
So he said, let's have a conversation on music. And that was my first lesson into the music, like a like hardcore lesson into let's break down timing and understand how that interacts with that choreography. And so um he always like taught me a lot on the music side and how to integrate that into the dance side, and we worked a lot very well in terms of wanting to have an idea for a production, or a dance piece, and really bringing that to light in a way that really resonated with both of our artistries. And yeah, like sometimes we'd like have very strong disagreements, and it always was something that was focused on what the art was meant to be. And so that's really honestly why I feel Masagote got to where it was, because we really had such differing views, and finding a way to bring that together created something so uniquely different, that it just it added so much variety and context to the dance world at that time.
Wow. I'm curious for you, to know from you when you are coming up with a piece, right, or coming up with new choreography.
Mhm.
Does it start for you with a concept, like you have an idea of a story you want to tell, and then you find a song that emotes that feeling for you, or do you find a song and the song gives you the idea?
That's a great question. Honestly, it's a little bit of both, and it depends on what we're working on, or what I'm working on at that time. Sometimes I hear a song and I save it. I have some songs that I know I want to choreograph to, and I haven't had a moment.
Mhm.
I've had some that for a decade, no joke, are sitting in my drive waiting to be choreographed, and at some point will. And
We
I
all
wait
have
until,
those.
yeah.
We
I'm
all have
waiting
those.
until that inspiration kicks in. So sometimes you'll hear a song and this is something you want to do, and it'll direct immediately where you want to go. Those songs sometimes tend to be a little bit more of a like a showcase dance, but once in a while will actually be really centered on a message. Like my piece Exhibit Diaz, when I heard that song, I knew what I wanted to do with that, and that became a collaborative dance film in the process that really spoke to a lot of the intersectional issues that the queer trans POC community had.
Mhm.
So there's sometimes that there's a prompt or a direction that I'm looking to take, and that directs the type of music that I need. Sometimes it means that I can find a song that speaks to what I'm doing, but more often than not, when it takes that approach, I actually sometimes will write my own poetry, my own words, and I'll collaborate with musicians to create the work for it, the musical background for it.
Yeah, you do. I've seen some of those. And by the way, guys, we've had her information scrolling from the beginning. You can see on her website all these amazing works that she does with her poetry and everything. We're going to show some videos of it later on, but unfortunately, as we know, those who watch the show, we don't actually get to hear what's happening, but you can find them on her page and watch them there. I want to ask you about this. This is a little bit of a choreography thing, if you will. There's a lot of powerful women on this stage. What are we watching here?
Oh my God. First of all, this is at Flavor Invasion. Shout out to Gordon Neal, who started this event. It's one still to this day one of my favorite events, and that of many artists, because the real focus was on the art. This was dance. This was a cha-cha collaborative workshop. You'll see Braju on the stage, Julissa, Sasalina Studio. I think I want to say that's Joby Brava as well. It's hard to see. It's so small. It's been so long, but ultimately
We
this
can make it bigger. Hold up.
that's okay. It's okay. The whole point is that this video was filmed. It was a cha-cha collaborative workshop at Flavor Invasion in Atlanta, and everybody, you can go out. You can come out. That video was done to really it was a whole collaborative workshop. All the instructors would do a couple shines, and you would build off of the next person, and then at the end you all did it together. So it was a fun way to collaborate everybody that had been teaching for the weekend.
And at some point, you guys did let the boys come and play. But again, it's the show's called Women in Dance, so we love them, but we're not going to watch them because I have way more videos of you that I'd love to get to.
There's some powerhouses in that room for sure.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I've learned that I love so much, and I've learned it from the show, is just how amazing all these women are in our industry and how great personality. Like, not are they only just amazing talents, but so down to earth, so accessible, just so fun. Like, you guys are also such amazing people,
Yeah,
and
he's
and I love
joining
that
us.
people get to know you guys because they just know
He's
the talent.
joining us.
Hi, Kitty, and he's gone.
He's gone. He comes to say hi. I think he came during your time. We're talking about all the girls, and he's like, nope, hold on a second.
That's funny.
I have to make myself known.
I love it. I love it. You also do a retreat,
We used to.
or we used
Those
to do a
have,
retreat.
yeah, pandemic unfortunately changed a lot, but that was actually the very first one. We used to do annual retreats. The very, very first one that was started was in 2009. And those were held out in Portland, Maine. And the very first one was women. I am dancing in a knee brace because the
Oh
year
my
the
goodness.
year that this danced, I had the bright idea to dislocate my knee less than a month before that happened. And so you can see me, I'm supposed to not be on my leg, and I'm stubborn enough still doing stuff with
The things we
an
do as dancers.
immobilizer. I literally have an immobilizer. I want to tell myself, get off your feet.
I know it's like for every dancer that's watching, how many of us have disregarded the advice of our doctors? Raise your hands. We've all done it. We're all guilty. It's so bad. Let me put down my coffee. Yeah, both hands. But that's kind of what we have to do, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as, pay time off or medical leave or
Yeah.
workers' comp when you get hurt as a dancer.
Yeah, and shout out to Serena, who was here and helping me. One of our prior dancers now dances with Julissa out in DC, and she was helping me showcase a lot of the material that we were doing that I couldn't do. And so, it goes to show that you lean on your people in hard times, and you help each other out. And so but yeah, that's how the retreat started. I think we had I want to say 12. I might be off, but I think 12 retreats. Eventually they switched into partnering before the pandemic hit. And then of course the pandemic sort of stopped everything. So I think Masakote is sort of figuring out what that next direction will be still.
I'm curious, like, what was that experience like working with so many women and empowering them, I believe, in a sense? I mean, I unfortunately was not there, but can you talk a little bit more about, especially in the beginning when it was all women?
Well, I won't say that I was empowering women. I think we were learning to collaborate together in many ways. I have a slight, I always have a slight disconnect with the word empower, because that's implying that I have the power to give you power, but our power is all internal. And it's about really seeking that out yourself and bringing that to light. And my work is to lay a groundwork for that to hopefully happen. But I think that in this retreat, everybody was, I mean, I had some amazing people that came to the retreat, and some of them still have friendships with each other and with me to this day. And it was a real bonding opportunity in this space. And unfortunately, in the Latin dance scene, it can be a very the world in general, the dance world mirrors our world in general, but our scene can be very chauvinistic and very gendered. And so
Mhm.
sometimes that also eats up into the way that we experience our friendships as women on the scene, and we forget to uplift one another. And so that unfortunately will pave way to like some um, missteps in our community. And so having those opportunities where we can get together and uplift each other is so dire and so needed in our environments. I will say that that probably led more into project styling. I think it was actually that same year. Project styling was specifically built around professionals creating space together, co-collaborating and co-creating, and then building out an environment where we could uplift one another and help to support each other in what can be a very chauvinistic dance and music industry.
Oh, I couldn't agree anymore, and I think we need more of that.
Mm.
We were talking about this the other day, just the idea of supporting each other and how that seems to be lacking so much. And if only we were all just working together more, or like it would just everybody would benefit.
And it's happening more. I mean, platforms like this, you're starting to see more female promoters. When I
Mhm.
started, there were no female promoters. They just weren't doing that. There were a few very successful solo female dancers, and that was through a lot of work on their end to get really pushed out into the scene. But what you saw more were males dominating a lot of the promotion of things, and then you also saw a lot of duets sometimes, but it would be more male and female. And so now in the last few years, you're starting to see more females and non-binary artists really building more of these platforms and environments that people can that can really build or be creating more of a working safe space for communities.
Can you talk to me about the process or the feeling of doing solo work versus being with a partner? Do you enjoy doing solos? I know a lot of women are like, no, but I do it because I have to in this business.
Um, I love both. I do love doing partner work, and I love doing collaborative group work. But I also find that sometimes my voice gets lost in the group work, and reason being is sometimes when I'm working in a collaborative group, I end up focusing so much on making that the group as a whole makes the message that I forget to focus on me. So when I do solo work, it's a way to come back to myself and say, okay, let me check in, let me fill my cup up, and then let me go back into community. That said, I also really, really love collaborative processes. So I won't say that I love partner work or stuff where I'm being told what to do as much as collaborative groups where we're working on things together. And so that's why a lot of my work takes a much more grassroots oriented approach. And there's a lot of collaboration in the process. You bring a lot of people together. And when you all have a say and that voice at the table, it's amazing what can be created from it. I learned
Agreed.
so much in that process.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely have a style that is just all your own, and many women try to emulate, for sure. You get to share your knowledge with the world. You've traveled everywhere. I mean, your bio says you've been, like, how many continents? How many countries have you visited over the years?
I think over 35 countries, like over 5 continents.
What is it about teaching that you love?
um, you know, there's so much. It's a question of where to start. But I would say if I were to hone in on something, I really feel that uh, I actually in my world, I don't actually, I try to avoid the word instructors or teachers, and I call us coaches because all we can do is guide someone. In the process, the work has to be done by the student or the individual that's learning, but they're being mentored in this field, in this journey. But we're more than just teaching a step. We're guiding people along this journey. And so what I've always loved has not necessarily been teaching the steps as much as seeing people open up and find both community and themselves in the process of dance. When I started dancing, when I was young, I was bullied a lot when I was a kid, and
Mhm.
I was a queer individual, trying to live in a world that was not accepting. And so I turned to my poetry to write that truth into existence and have a voice. And then dance became my other way of communicating to the world. It was my way of feeling comfortable in my own skin and being whoever I wanted to be on the dance floor. And so dance was my way of finding my voice and communicating who I was in that process. And so now when I teach dance, it's really to help people find that voice. It's to open that up and allow people to have more of an ability to feel welcome and feel that they have a space to be themselves.
I love that. And for students that are trying to find themselves, let's say find who they want to be as dancers or find their style. Um, is there a piece of advice that you could give to students so they're not mimicking? Like, how do you tell your students for your lady styling, you know, what is it that you want to present versus you trying to do me?
I would say the goal is not to find yourself, but to meet yourself.
Oh,
And
I
what I
like
mean
that.
by that,
Ooh.
um, we spend too much time chasing who we think we want to be instead of realizing that who you are is all internal. You know who you are. And that's an intuitive process. You really know what's underneath your surface, and you're the only one that does. And if you can tap into that voice, that helps bring out your expression forward into the world. And we need that. We all need variety. We all need your uniqueness. And so um, focus less on trying to find someone else's style, but more meeting yourself in where you are. And where you are is exactly where you need to be. Approach the learning process as a journey, so that it's more about bettering your technique that will give you more tools and more skills to open up. So if I'm teaching something in a class, and I'm teaching someone styling how to do an arm, I'm teaching the technique for it, but not the expression. The expression has to be a more internal process of discovery of yourself and meeting yourself where you are.
Oof, I got so many goosebumps listening to that. I was like, I need to take myself off camera. I'm getting emotional because I'm feeling all of it. I hope you guys watching are taking notes because she's just dropping a lot of important information. It's like a therapy session, right? Just like, oh my God, I hear you. I
Hmm.
feel this. And that's why, again, why I do this show. Um, what do you love about being an artist?
I I love the process of exploration, and I love the process of being able to bring my truth into the world and mold my narrative. I believe very much that power is in our stories.
Mhm.
And if you don't take the time, oh, T, hey, hey. If you don't take the time to tell your own story, then you allow other people to tell it for you. So, what I love about the art is being able to change worlds through that by being able to show a different perspective. There's this quote, I think it's Richard Blanco that has it, where it goes something like, I think it goes, artists are the emotional historians of the world, right? And so if you look around in your neighborhood and you look at the art in your city and in your surroundings, you can get a pulse to the heartbeat of the city and what's happening within it. And so if you are able to tune into that, it gives you a very big understanding to what your community needs are, what's missing, what's working, and how you can advocate for the community in that process.
I love how vocal you are about the things that you care about. And this is not to throw shade on anyone else in our business whatsoever, because everybody has their goals, everybody has their priorities. But you are one of the handful that I can think of that are very vocal about the things that you believe in, that advocate very much for the things that you believe in. Other people be damned. And where do you get that strength? And where do you get that drive?
Um, that's been a learning process over time. I think that I when I came out, I came out when I was 16 the first time, and it was a very hard process. I was bullied, I was trolled. There was not even Facebook and social media like at that time, and I
Mhm.
was trolled on chat rooms. And so, I empathize a lot with the youth at this time that are growing up in this space of um, social media madness, where you don't have that, you don't know how to advocate for yourself in those spaces. But I really, in that process, had to grow thicker wings, right?
Mhm.
And I had to learn to realize that my voice was my superpower, and that what people were doing were trying to suppress it. And so over time, it really made me more aware of how can I tap into my voice, what are my beliefs, what are my issues, and how can I use my platform to advocate, because I believe that the higher the platform you have, the more of a responsibility you have to advocate for positive change in your community. And so it's really just ultimately how I've approached my work over time. I will say that I left Masacote in 2019, like I stepped down as partner. But also, I had to have my own second time of public coming out on the international circuit in 2014, um, post a divorce. And that was, a process in itself. Being able to be in the community where people knew me as one thing, and all of a sudden realize that that's not who I was. And the truth of the matter is that I never was. I'm bi, and I never was not queer. The problem is that when you're married to a man or you're dating a man as a bi person, sometimes there's a lot of invisibility in the industry, in your world at that time. So post a divorce, there was again a more international coming out, and that took time to develop my voice in that process. But I've always believed in advocating for the things that I believe in, because if we don't, who will?
If
It's
you
on
don't mind
us.
if you don't mind my asking, what was the response from the community? Did you feel support? Did
Mm.
you feel like what did they give back to you when you made that second coming out or on the international stage, if you will?
Well, the second time around was very, very different. And the difference stemmed first from the fact that I understood myself better and I knew myself better, how to advocate for myself. And so I had many, many friends, and not for nothing, but when I came out the first time, this was in the 90s, when everybody was like, it was an uproar for Ellen to come out. So it was a very big
Mhm.
difference. When I came out the second time, the world was a little bit more open. And so I would say that a lot of my community was just very supportive of me in that process. And and I think that, I was very thankful for that. I did have people that uh, would tell me that they supported me, but on the other end, post very homophobic or hateful content for
Mm,
different things on their site. And so you kind of started to see where people were and how people would say one thing to your face, but do something else behind your back. And then you would also have some people that try to preach at me, and they would say, "Well, I wish I had known so that I could tell you what the Lord believes in." And I would say, "Great, great. It's not something that I haven't heard before, and I think the Lord
mm,
loves me very much. I do very much good in the world, and I'm very happy with where I'm at." And so
wow.
you had to decipher a lot of those things, and it's like I wouldn't take it personal because at that point it didn't. I was like, I don't need to take that on. I was way more centered, which much more centered. The more interesting part was the trying to uh how do you say this, um the act of trying to dismiss your relationships or partnerships at that point. If I am dating a woman now or whatnot, you still have men that still try to hit on you and still try to talk to you. And so I would have individuals that would message me and say, "Hey, I wish that I had known so that you were single so that I could get with you." And I'd say, "No, you've seen that I'm like not single." And even then it wouldn't have mattered because I wasn't interested at that point. But the whole idea that they had the uh thought to do this showed a lot about where people were at the and still are in the world.
Wow. Well, it's important to have wonderful people around you supporting you, and I know
Mhm.
this woman right here, who we all love very dearly, is one of your
Julissa,
dearest. Julissa, she
Julissa
was
could,
also on the show in
yes.
season 1. Talk about your sisterhood with this fabulous woman.
First of all, I think Julissa is one of the like most amazing artists that we have in the Afro Latin dance field, um,
I
that is
second that.
well known but hasn't received as much recognition as she should. And anybody that you talk to that knows Jalissa, I'm sure would agree with me. But she's
Mhm.
amazing. She's based out of DC. First time I saw her was at Flava Invasion performing with Gordon Neal at Flava Invasion, and she has a large training in other dance styles, and she was doing this like sort of hip hop pop and locking piece with mixed with salsa with Gordon, and I was mesmerized because it was the first time for me that I had really seen something like that on like that was really so well done that didn't require the female to be so princess
Mhm.
pretty. And so
Yep.
I loved it. I absolutely was mesmerized. I'm so thankful to have her as a friend. And she says that I'm her mentor, but I say that we mentor each other because I often ask her for so much advice in my process. And it goes to show that it you have to again you have to uplift each other. But she's an amazing human, an amazing person, amazing choreographer. I mean, she can make choreography like that.
Mhm.
So and then this was one time that we actually got to collaborate on a mix of a cha-cha salsa piece, oh, cha-cha, half hip-hop kind of piece.
I'm curious because, like you said, she's in DC, you were in Boston. How did you make like, what was the choreographic, like, process for you guys? Because you weren't local to each other.
Yeah, I mean, like any choreographic process that when you're living in other states, we would do a lot of stuff where we would take time for me to meet her, her to meet me, and we would do the choreography.
'Cause there
Um,
was no Zoom back then.
yeah, there wasn't. Now you have a lot more of that possibility happening. Like I did a production more recently with Alice in Rainbow Land. And we did all of that process online virtually. So we had Zoom meetings, Zoom rehearsals. We
Mhm.
worked with artists in Massachusetts, New York, and Rhode Island. Some of the stuff was in person. The duet work that I did with Maury on that was in person for rehearsals, but most of the work was done off of Zoom and Google Drive documents and sharing of videos and writing of scripts and sharing in that way. So it was very interesting. And that at this time, it was we would meet in person. She would visit me, we would work on it for a weekend, and I would visit her, and we would work on it for a weekend.
Best ending for a routine ever. Just a little bye. Off goes your
A
guest.
spiff off of Gordon, like leaving the stage.
I love it. I love it so much. It's just so fun. Um, I'm trying to pull up another video of you because there's just so many. I'm like, I have to cut stuff out because for anyone that doesn't know, there's a lot of material of hers online and you are free to search it all. But because this is a limited show, I'm like, no, but I want to show this. Oh, okay, I'm going to skip this video. But here's another one of your solo performances. I love the looks that you always have, right? So we haven't really talked about the costumes. When you come up with what your costume will be, what is your process? Do you design everything yourself? Do you make things? Is it a sketch? Do you like how does everything come about as I hit my microphone?
It varies. I also can make some of my own costumes. So I've made some of my costumes, like the Gallego dresses. I created those. I used to work in a theater production, or not work, but I interned at a theater production company as a costume designer when I was in college in the university.
Very cool.
And so with that process, you learned how to take a design, understand the concept, and develop a idea of what you wanted to create with that, and then actually make the project, and I mean the costume. So I did some of that, but I don't do that as much now. Now I do a little bit more of deciding the direction that I want my costumes to go, and based on what I'm wanting it to create. And I do believe that what you see, your costume is the first thing people see, so that sets the stage for what you want people to take from it and present. And for me, and this is not a diss on anybody, because I actually very much advocate for body positivity and very much being comfortable in your own skin. For me in particular, I didn't want to go out in a bathing suit because I didn't want that to detract from the dance. I didn't want the costume to detract from the dance. I wanted my costume to connect with the feeling that I wanted people to get from it. And so I often do a lot of stuff where it's like half longer dresses or half dress and pants. This was a mix of wanting to have a feeling of a masculine feminine piece between the pantsuit and the top half dress. And so it was a feeling of wanting to connect with the two worlds.
I love you. And can I just say, I love you because I was literally going to ask you, as a person who talks about body positivity, and you literally just went right into it. I'm like, she's reading my mind. For the record, people, with the exception of the opening question and the closing question, she doesn't know what I'm going to ask her. So that was just like, get out of my head, girl. No, I love that though, like, because you get it. And that's all I'm going to say about that is that you get it.
Well, I want women to be able to, women and our non-binary individuals to also be able to tune into what they want and what you want said on the floor. And I think in many cases, in some cases, you have males that also run companies, and then they decide what their dancers are going to wear. And sometimes there's a disconnect between what people are comfortable wearing in these pieces. And so you often see that a lot where women are half dressed and men are in this full 3-piece, whatever bodysuit, right? I mean, suit. And so I think that I want women to be able to know that they can advocate for what they want and how they want to be presented on the stages and whatnot. So, and again, if what you want is a specific look and you want to show more skin, then that's great. That's totally okay. But know that what you want can be advocated for.
Anna, do you still teach classes on a regular basis?
Mm.
Is a question for you.
So no, actually, I stepped down from Masacote in at the end of 2019, specifically because for previous years I'd been working on more solo work and production and community work. and really working on changing narratives around sexual, racial, gender stereotypes and mainstream media.
Mhm.
And so in 2019, I stepped down because I really wanted to strongly focus on that work and more of my solo work. Solo being work that I might create in a production, but it might still be very collaborative in the process. And so there's a lot of my collaborations that I do in my process and in my work. That said, I took a little bit more of a step back from teaching in person. I do teach sometimes when I travel, which has definitely like stopped mostly during the pandemic, but I know eventually we'll pick back up. But I also have now an online dance academy called Dance to Power that was
Mhm.
launched at the end of 2018. Funny enough, so it's actually pre-pandemic. It wasn't started because of the pandemic. It was started because I wanted. I've always been a tech girl, and I wanted to merge my world of tech and dance, and I wanted to create something that really offered quality instruction online.
Mhm.
And so Dance to Power developed. It got paused during the pandemic in 2020 at the pandemic because I wanted to restructure it. And I took the last couple years to do a really strong dive between focus groups and one-on-one conversations to really figure out what the next direction of Dance to Power was supposed to be. And I ended up creating something that was really based on creating a program that I would have been able to do when I started dancing. When I started dance, I didn't have any money to do classes. I was in Texas at that time. There weren't very many salsa instructors. And then to know who to go to have quality instruction was like, you didn't even know who to go to. That didn't exist at that time. And so I wanted to create a program that I would have been able to do. So Dance to Power just relaunched this month, actually, funny enough. They can go to dancetopower.com, and it's basically a membership site. And you can take it has a full coursework of specific body mechanic stuff. Like if you want to learn how to do a body wave or a figure eight, like that's on there. But there's also intensives that are released every month by a guest coach, and we have bi-weekly seminars. And so I think for me, my biggest thing is that I wanted to create a platform that was accessible and that was something that people could do flexibly from anywhere and get that quality instruction. So that's what Dance to Power is about. So if you want to learn from me right now, I would say do dancetopower.com. And to be honest, that's like taking all of my knowledge and piecing it down. And it's not meant to be a dance to replace a dance studio. I don't think you can replace a dance studio connection online. It's meant to supplement a lot of the work that people do in studios, so that if you want to work on some extra movements and mechanics, you can do that outside. So that's the goal of DTP. So Madalena, other than that, I hope I will eventually, with the pandemic, start traveling again, and maybe one day you'll find me in your city. So other than, it's really just more request basis.
I wanna ask, the transition from Masacote Entertainment to just being a full-fledged solo artist. I know a lot of women in this industry start with a company or whatever, they dedicate a lot of time, and then they have to make the decision to stay on or do their own thing, and it's terrifying. It's really terrifying speaking from experience. So, what advice, I mean, can you give to women who are, like, in that process of, like, "Do I stay? Do I go?" What was that experience like for you, and how did you have the strength to do it?
That's a great question. I mean, I think doing anything that's new to you is going to be always have some sort of set of fear. And the question is, um, understanding what you are actually scared of.
Mhm.
And I've had different conversations with people, um, on this in different ways, in terms of what holds people back from doing their own thing. For me, doing my own thing wasn't scary in the sense of starting the business, because I'd always been in this side of you can start anything, and if you work hard enough, it's going to grow. Ultimately, the main thing is that you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to. And
Amen.
so the fear for me really lied in me wondering, am I going to, this is my home. It's this feeling of leaving the nest, right? You've had this home. I've had this home for 15 years. How am I leaving and stepping away to do my own, my another company on my own and stuff? And so for me, what was really important was that I set the groundwork for the company to survive and thrive without me. I just said strive, like thrive and strive. Wait,
It's okay. I make up words all the time. You're not alone.
survive and thrive without me. So, it's a new word for the day, dictionary.com.
There
So,
you go.
um, I would say that the team at Masacote has always been phenomenal, and they're still a wonderful team. I mean, the Joelle and G, who's now the dance school director and doing a lot of the classes, like they were all ready, like to support my leave and to work on what was happening going forward. And so we really set up a plan on what we wanted to do. My fear was really that feeling of leaving the nest and feeling like, am I losing my family? But they helped me understand that my family, my Masacote family, whom I love and adore, still supports me in everything. They're always there, and same vice versa. I'm always there to support Masacote, and they're still doing their own thing, doing amazing work. But I know that my heart and what my focus on was not in the let me have a regular day-to-day studio. I was really wanting to focus on the artistic productions and the installations and the production work, and I needed to focus on that. So once I could understand that it wasn't losing as much as realizing that I had helped create this wonderful thing that was going to still keep going. And I always had a place there if I wanted to go back, but that I could just go off and do something that my heart was always moved to do, then that was a no-brainer to take the leap. And so everybody's experience is different. Some people really have had unfortunately a lot of like friction in the leave, and you have to understand, like, if you're leaving, if you're in something that's no longer serving you, and you're not growing, because it has to be mutually beneficial, right? If your community is growing but you're also growing, like, it should be a two-way street. If that's no longer happening, then it's okay to take a pause, to take a shift and step away. And if the people that you're working with can't understand that maybe this is your time to step away, then that says a lot about where you need to be.
Powerful. Did you just know in your gut it was time for something new?
Yeah, but the transition took time. I'd been wanting to make the transition for I think about 3 years before I actually did it. It took time to take the steps to make that happen, and so it was just an investment of an investment of faith in the time. That time takes a little. That would take a little time.
Well said. Well said. I know this is like totally off topic, but watching this, because right now we don't have sound. Again, this is one of those videos you can find on her page. But your hair is fucking gorgeous. And like, can we just talk about hairography for a second and how you have that be a part of it? Because it's just so beautiful. I'm so jealous with my thin white girl hair. Anyway.
Stop. My hair's name is Isa.
Yes.
She used to have an Instagram account, and then I was like,
Are
no,
you
no.
serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. I had no time for it. I had to stop it.
Oh my god, that might be the best thing I've heard in I don't know how long.
But yes, my hair is this piece is actually a part of the hair story project that I collaborated on with Yvette Modestine, who's an amazing activist, Afro Latina out of Boston and Panama. And we collaborated on a project called the Hair Story Project, which was really creating more context for the ongoing debate of natural hair. And now Yvette is really working to build that out, to build more advocacy for the Crown Act that's currently in legislation at the moment. And so that particular piece was a poetry and dance that was centered around telling my story around how xenophobia plays into assimilation, or more vice versa, how assimilation plays into xenophobia, and how sometimes disconnected yes, Isa. And how that really is a process of learning to love yourself. And it was a conversation on how white supremacy becomes something that's all encompassing, and learning to honor our roots is important. And I think it's important to note there's a lot of like, for us, it was really important to talk about the African American community, but also the Latina community, because um, a lot of that anti-blackness also exists within the the Latina community. And so part of us not like needing to straighten our hair, you know, those stories of grandmother telling you to stay out of the sun, that all plays together. And we all have a history that plays into an anti-blackness in our communities. And being able to understand how that feeling of being able to assimilate, and how Latinos can choose between showing up as white or showing up as black or not showing up as anything, without realizing that that you're playing into that system, then that's sort of what the context of that conversation was about.
Wow. And the poetry that's happening there is said by you, right? All these videos, it's your spoken word, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
I love it. I love it. In fact, this next video that I'm going to show, even though I'm not going to be able to play it, you actually see you mouthing the words or like singing along. So, see, like you're talking there. You're
Yes.
hitting some of your lines while you're
Okay.
dancing. Hey.
But hold on a second, because my mommy is watching right now. Mamacita, linda, hola. So she just logged in. So I got to say hi and shout out to mommy, whom I love and adore, and I'm sure is working. So I don't know how she's able to tune in.
That's amazing. I love
That's
it.
love. But this piece was about queerness, and it was about you know, for me, what I really am advocating for people to understand is that dance is a mirror to our world.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the biases that we see in the dance world are just a reflection of what we see in everyday life. And so for that reason, dance can be used as a way and as a vehicle to be able to change some of the biases and stereotypes that we see in our society, especially in such a partnered male dominated field, right? And so this particular piece is called "Do You Not See Us Dancing," and it was created. It's an excerpt from a larger 35-minute dance film and story that was rescripted as a reimagining of in Wonderland, told
Mhm.
as Alice in Rainbow Land, as as a, a rescripted and narrative story told through dance music and the world of underground ballrooms. And so this piece spoke to liquid leading, so changing the role between both partners, so that you can understand that dance is not binary, and that partner dancing shouldn't be gendered, or
Mhm.
does not need to be gendered. And so and the poetry is about what we also experience in the dance scene. So you might know this, like Sharon, if you like your dancing out there, that sometimes you end up getting some men that will cut in if you have two women dancing together. And so
Mhm.
that would happen a lot because there's not enough, or happens a lot still, because there's not enough respect given to the partnership of the dance. And it's a feeling of like, they're more joking or playing around, instead of thinking that maybe potentially they really are actually dancing together.
Yeah,
And so
right?
the idea of the dance is this dance is not binary. And do you not see, the whole premise was, do you not see us dancing as a way to say, I am dancing, instead of having to cut in, like maybe appreciate the dance and respect it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's really important. Again, I'll use your word coaches. As coaches, for us to teach dance as lead and follow, not this is the man's part, this is the woman's part. This is what the leader does, and this is what the follower does. And I personally, like, I really believe that anyone who wants to be a instructor or coach or whatever should be able to do both and explain both, especially the women in our business, because nobody thinks twice about going to a class with a male instructor and expecting him to teach the men's and women's parts, right? They never question it. But like with the woman instructor, it's like, well, where's your male counterpart? Or you can only teach ladies styling.
Hmm.
And I hate that in this business, like, I hate that with a passion. Why is it okay for a man to teach an entire class and do the lead and follow, but it's, like, out of the concept for some people, like, that a woman could do the same?
It's a bias for sure that we have in our industry, and I think we've talked about this before, that and actually many of the women in the dance industry talk about this, that
Mhm.
unfortunately we live in an environment where women are more willing to learn from men than men to learn from women. And so that represents in the aspect of if you're teaching a class and you're out in the environment, in the community, you're teaching a class at a school, sorry, at a festival or whatnot, you'll often find females at a men's class, but men usually ask, like, are you going to be, is this for men and women? And technically the whole point is maybe it's okay to get outside your comfort zone and not ask and just go into the class and experience it the same way that women don't ask, is this for women, just as much as men. And so I think there has to be a lot of support that goes around in both ways. I know many women who actually aren't teaching, they don't like, and I've saying myself, we've dropped the word ladies from ladies styling,
Yep.
because styling is styling, and so you decide how you're going to use it or not use it. And there needs to be a little bit more understanding around that. In terms of like learning both roles, I never say people should learn both. I think I invite people to learn both because it helps you understand something from a different perspective. And if some people are wanting to only learn one aspect, then that's okay. But understand that when you are coaching, the less you know, the more of a disservice you're doing to your students by not being able to understand that and explain it the way that they may need as well to know. And so I do think that it helps us to have more communication by understanding different aspects of our dance. I will also say that sometimes even in, like, now you're seeing more queer couples out on the scene too, or duets, like,
Mm-hmm.
that are teaching. And sometimes the chauvinistic side will still transcend into the queer world, where you'll see the more male of center partner doing being the teacher of the class, and the more female of center partner not teaching, or sort of being what you call the picture, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's also a disservice to the community. So even that, you have to be careful in understanding that leading is leading and can be done by anyone. Following is following and can be done by anyone. And styling is styling and can be done by
Yep.
anyone. And men, women, our non-binary community, queer community, you're welcome to take any of the classes. And and it's really a strong invitation for the community to open yourself up to try something different.
And I think it goes much broader than just the community, like we were talking about, the show, even though it's called Women of Dance and is meant to inspire women, not a lot of guys, I think, are watching the show, and I think that's a disservice because, number 1, they could benefit from this, and number 2, we would support them. Like, that's the thing, like, women will support men without questioning.
Yes.
Without questioning, but,
Yes.
like, how many of our male counterparts are actually sitting down and watching this and
Mm.
listening to their partner's stories or
I
listening to
was
the dancers that they admire, their stories? Like, I'm just curious why this is a thing.
Again, dance is a mirror and a reflection of our world. I remember being on so many of the podcasts are actually um, done by males in the industry, and I remember
Mhm,
being listening in on one story on Instagram on one discussion that someone was having, and I won't mention who it was, but they were having an Instagram talk, and it was a male with another male, and in the talk, you ended up getting at that point, I think IG was starting to do the 4 panels of people that could basically go live at the same time. So
mhm,
2 more men joined into the conversation, and then they started basically having just a chat amongst men, and it was very lots of testosterone in the room. And
mhm.
so and that was fine, because I think in many ways women, we can do that too as women.
Oh, for
However,
sure.
here's the thing that I want to mention was what caught my eye and
Say it.
really made me feel some sort of way.
Say it.
At
Tell them.
some point,
Tell them.
yes, hold on. Where's my tea? Where's my
I'm ready. Let's go.
on this talk? They asked, when the interviewer asked, who were the people that had really been instrumental in building the salsa scene. And all the people, all the men in the room started giving all these people that had, like, Frankie Martinez, Eddie Torres. They started naming all these names of people who had created like this big, like, opening into the dance world, and like had really like started making and paving the way for it and for more. And they kept going and going. And then people on the Instagram chat were giving their names. And no one, there were women on this chat watching this interview. nobody in the room, but the women on the chat, men on the interview, so like giving comments. Nobody was mentioning the women. Nobody. And
Mm.
I was
Ugh.
sitting there going, I started when I started on VHS videos with Josie Neglia, like, I'm
Mhm.
dating myself, but this was like before
Okay.
dating. All right.
Okay, I know all about them VHSs. I got a box of them in
I
my
know
living room. We're
there
good.
was no YouTube. There was no YouTube.
No
So
YouTube.
God, people are so lucky right now because
I
there's
know.
so much quality content and people doing online stuff and access to this stuff. You did not have that. AT, you're my one. Yes.
Thank you for watching as our one male today. We appreciate you.
And so on this, I thought like there was Josie Neglia, there was Ida Sasovic, there was Joby Brava, there were like so many people.
So many.
And then there's, like so many of our people that we forget about from our communities that don't always have a platform, but they've
Mhm.
been around for ages. Look at Marisol, who does Afro-Cuban out in Orlando. Like there's people who have been working on doing this work for ages, and they may not have had that platform up front and center, but it really struck me how much even we as women sometimes forget to uplift ourselves and the people in our communities too. And so, yes, it's important to support one another, but it's also important for us to step outside our comfort zone and maybe listen to somebody else's point of view that maybe is not what we think may be for us, because that is probably when you really need to be there. There might be something for you.
Mhm. Oh, that's so true. So true. Before we wrap it up for the day, slowing down, this is actually a video made by my one dance partner, Joe Figueroa, where he actually does a series where he features different women social dancing.
Oh, that's right.
And this video is called Magic in the Void. And I believe here he's actually referencing your hair whip and says, "Whip that curly hair." His commentary is pretty funny here, I'm not gonna lie. But I wanted to end with this clip of you social dancing because, like I said earlier, you have this beautiful style, this lovely grace when you dance and flavor and all. Like, we talk about dancers and like what's more important, technique or sabor, you know? And like you got sabor for days, but you're also trained. Do you think that one is more important than the other?
Oh, okay. Now wait, hold on.
That
What
was
we
that was
watching?
you. That was an impression of people whipping your hair. I told you, it's a clip where he
Oh,
dissects
okay.
it, so they were
I,
trying to whip their hair back and forth like you, was basically what the point of that was.
yes, totally. So the question is, what's more important?
Yeah, like flavor or technique?
Oh, flavor technique. When
I know,
I
it's a
was
tough question.
starting, when I was starting, I remember seeing Edwin Rivera, and if you don't know who Edwin Rivera, you can just look him up. He's a dancer now. I think currently still in LA,
Mhm,
but he was a youth that really was brought up under David Melendez, and they had a small little youth troupe that were out performing. And one time I saw their troupe at the Congress. Okay,
mhm.
they were on the festival stage and they were performing, and Edwin was the only person everybody was looking at. Like it was like you couldn't look away. Like you're
Mhm.
trying to look at the whole group, but Edwin's like feeling it. It's like, and he didn't have. You'll say, I'm pretty sure he'll say himself, his technique wasn't very good at that time, but he was so in his feelings and loving this dance and just like there that you could not take your eyes away. And I remember having a like that just made me want to get up and dance. And I had a friend once that told me, years later, he said, Anna, sometimes I look at some dancers and I see them and they're so technical and amazing and they do all these crazy spins and flips and stuff. And I leave like thinking, I'm never going to dance. I'm never going to learn like that. Like, I'm never going to be able to learn that. I can't do that. And then I'll see somebody and they're just like doing very simple stuff, or sometimes they're doing very advanced stuff. They're doing just as advanced stuff, but they're doing it in a different way that makes me want to be able to dance and think that maybe I can do that. And the point was that it doesn't matter how technical you are, if you're not releasing that expression, then sometimes you lose something in that process. And so I don't think one is more important than the other. I think technique is very important. I think expression and the voice that that you grow up with is very important. But I think when you merge the two worlds together, that's when you hit your sweet spot. That's when you really find something beautiful and different, and you're able to just come out of this in a different way. So I won't say one is more important. I will say that they're both just as important. What I think is more important than anything is understanding your why you want to do this, understanding why, so you don't lose yourself in the process of the learning.
Are you trying to cut me off at the before my question? Because that was almost the answer. Like you
What
almost
was
went
your
to my
question?
final question, but I didn't get there yet. Already giving advice to people. What are you doing to me? Anna, your smile lights up the whole room scene. You know that, but I wanted to mention it again. Madalena is sending you some love.
Oh, I love you.
I love it. I absolutely love it. No, what I was saying was it's almost seemed like you were about to cut off, answer my question before I got to the question, which is if you could give one piece of advice to women who want to make it in this business, what would that piece of advice be? It sounds like you started to touch up on it, but let's go official answer now.
I would say bring all your identities in the room.
Ooh,
Um, we're only as powerful as we're only as powerful as the stories that we bring into the room of ourselves. So bring all your identities. Don't hold yourself back. Don't feel that you have to be what somebody else wants you to be. Be honest with yourself, be authentic, and bring every bit of yourself into the room, because there's powers in every single identity.
love that. That's such important advice. Ladies, I hope you're right. Ladies, gentlemen, whoever's watching, I hope you wrote that down. Very important. Again, Anna, we've had your stuff scrolling on the bottom of the screen the whole time. They can follow you on Facebook and IG at Ana Masacote. And you have your website, anamasacote.com. And you had also mentioned a website for Power to Dance. Dance the Power.
Dancetopower.com. Come check us out. Feel free to send me an email if you want more information on that. It's a monthly membership site, dancetopower.com, which you can also find on Facebook and IG. Can I just give a big shout out and love to, first of all, Mami, because Mami is more important than anybody. Hola, Mami,
Of
te quiero
course.
muchísimo. To T, you're amazing. Matt, oh my God, Madalena, you're just like phenomenal. And I don't know who else is watching. Thank y'all for making the time to watch this in person. And whoever watches this after, thank you. Share this with whomever you think you may need to see it. And a big shout out to my QTPOC community and my Masacote fam, who always is here and whose shoulders I stand on, because I can't be here without the people who are always lifting me up in my work. And I appreciate y'all so much, and Sharon, for what you're doing. Congratulations. And I hope this keeps taking off and more people keep hearing about it. Thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
Oh, it was my pleasure for having you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I told you when we did the pre-interview prep, I was like, I'm a little nervous because I like love you and I'm like fangirling a little bit. So I'm really happy I was able to keep my cool during this interview. This was great. Um, Thank you again for your time. Is there anything coming up that you want people to know about? Something to look out for?
At the moment, I would say sign up for my email list, anamasacote.com. Sign up for Dance to Power. There's going to be a lot more amazing stuff happening there. But I'm working on some artistic projects for next year, more later in the year. And so that's going to take some time, but that's why you need to be on my email list to get all that information. And overall, I'm going to continue advocating for community, for my LGBTQ community, and for my Latinx community, and for yes, I hope to see New York City sometime, but I don't know when. But yeah, and at some point I hope to be traveling again, once this world opens up little by little. So Matt,
Well,
shout out to everybody who's been thriving and making it through here. And if you're just like finding time to barely get up in the morning, the fact that you got up and we're here together, it means everything. Thank you.
well, I personally cannot wait to see what you do next. I'm going to sign up for that newsletter. I'm going to get all the info so that I can stalk you and find. No, I can't wait to see what you do next. I'm so amazed by you. You're a role model to so many of us. So thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for giving of your time today. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Join me next week. We're going to be taking it to Toronto and Kimberly Ramos. So I will
Ooh.
see you all next week. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, this is Women of Dance. I'm your host, Sharonne Vinokurov, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you, guys. Love you all. Bye.